Now, a record number of people declared themselves insolvent last year. For the first time, 100,000 either went bankrupt or took out stringent debt repayment plans called Individual Voluntary Arrangements, or IVAs. But Channel 4 News has learned that the Advertising Standards Authority has widened its investigation into the advertising of IVAs after complaints from the Shadow Chancellor. More on that in a moment, but first our money reporter Emily Rubin is here with more on those figures, and they are very alarming, aren't they?
They are quite alarming, yes. If we look at the figures of England and Wales, people who went insolvent last year, 107,288. Now compare that to last year, 2005, 67,584. What's alarming, I think, is the jump. It's gone up by 59%, almost 59%, and that's just in a year. Well, these figures coincide with the end of National Debt Awareness Week, and yesterday there was a big conference culminating in a big debate, and it was actually quite interesting. There was some interesting analysis put forward, not the usual generalisations you hear about debt. And we went along to ask some questions of our own. Far from melting away, our debt problems are getting bigger. So we asked an assembled panel of experts who is to blame: the banks and credit card companies who lend the money, or the consumers who borrow it.
There's clearly faults on both sides. If you can't afford to pay something back, you shouldn't perhaps borrow it in the first place. Equally, you can say that banks perhaps and other financial institutions too, perhaps push credit cards or push loans onto people.
Debt is seen as an accepted part of life, and people do want the latest washing machine, the latest television, DVD player, and see debt as a way of getting that now rather than saving up for it, which might have been the approach 2 or 3 decades ago.
I very regularly see people on low income with no assets racking up 60, 70, 80,000 pounds of unsecured debt. That cannot be sensible lending.
So the big question the audience wanted an answer to: what can be done?
Better financial education in schools, it's having access to genuinely independent financial advice.
Get people to think about the debt that they're taking, so that, for example, their credit card statement has a much clearer statement about how long it's going to take if they just pay the minimum charge, what the cost of credit actually is, so that people are confronted on a monthly basis with what the cost of debt actually is to them.
This lack of personal communication with bank managers. I mean, my first bank account, I went to meet the manager and he shook by the hand and said, "Oh, you should have got an account," and it was very, very friendly, very personable, very conservative gentleman who you trusted and wouldn't mislead you. Now you're dealing with computers and this sort of thing. I think it's much easier to sort of to go where you shouldn't go.
No, the other thing we were talking about was the fact that the advertising watchdog is looking at supposedly aggressively selling IVAs. That's what the Tories are concerned about.
Well, that's right, and this was a hot topic at the debate. IVAs are basically a debt management scheme where you pay off something like between 20 and 40% of your debt, and they are controversial. So what we learned yesterday was that the Shadow Chancellor, George Osborne, has written to the Advertising Standards Authority, and he's expressed concern about 2 things. Firstly, the amount of fees that people are charged, and also whether or not they've really told how it's going to affect their credit rating if they do take out an IVA. What he wants, he said to the Advertising Standards Authority, is an honest and ethical advertising code for them. The Advertising Standards Authority have agreed to widen their investigation into these types of adverts, so we expect to see a ruling on that sometime soon.
Emily Rubin, thank you. Now, shares in Sainsbury's soared by 18%